Alrighty, so time for a video that has been honestly long overdue and well in the making, and a question that I get asked quite a bit. What was the first year of teaching like? I talked about in my last video. I became a teacher this past year, and I got through my first year teaching, getting past it this May. So the question I've been getting since then is, oh, what was the first year teaching like? How was it? How was it being a teacher, a coach, things of that nature? So I'm gonna go through the kind of the full year, how I got into it, what was my perspective, my mindset, and how it evolved. So this sort of the tale of the tape. When I got to the beginning of the year, luckily I had people in my life already that were kind of mentoring me before I got into it. The people who got me into teaching were giving me some advice and some, kind of, just words of wisdom. The main thing they told me was, hey, first year teaching can suck for a lot of people, because you just don't know what you don't know. I entered it. Luckily, I wasn't too wide eyed from the standpoint, and this is a good thing for me. I think because I had a different career before I got into teaching, I wasn't so honestly so optimistic as far as just, oh my gosh, I'm new, this is my first job, this is my first career, this is my first choice. Like, nah, I did something else before, so it helped me kind of always stay grounded and leveled. Like, you're not gonna know everything, you've been through this before, you've been through kind of the rigors of understanding a new job, figuring it out. So I never really got too bent out of shape, at least in the beginning, right? And then tempering expectations of, hey, you're not going to know everything. So rely on your veteran teachers, rely on your staff, rely on your ICs, your admin. If you don't know something, if you're not sure how something look, all my mentors are like, hey, ask somebody, ask people, because at the end of the day, teaching really is one of those things. It's all collaborative. So with that being said, that was kind of my mindset going into this past year. Now, again, having previous work experience, I was able to kind of pull on that. Okay, and having a degree in education. I mean, so I have a degree in public health, but at U of H, the school I graduated from, it's in the School of Education. So you do a lot of educational methods. You do a lot of teaching methods. A lot of classes you take in that profession geared towards teaching people different things, mainly health promotion. So I was able to kind of have a little bit of background as far as teaching people stuff, coaching people stuff, walking people through things that I was able to play on when it came to applying that to the classroom. When you are in a classroom, though, you have to make sure that you have things like your lesson plans, your curriculum structure, your curriculum previews. You have to make sure that your board is set with your lesson, your concept suggestion, your essential questions. Those are things that you're required to have. So I just was able to say, okay, I remembered teaching people this way. I just have to translate it this way. And from my accounts, I mean, at least from what my feedback was that the teaching part I was actually relatively good at, and I think I was able to adapt relatively quickly because I was able to see a lot of this stuff before it just looked in a different language. Um, and then just getting into the actual profession, the main thing was, okay, because I don't know anything, or don't because I don't know everything, I was able to say I'm gonna play on my strengths. My strengths is relationship building, being able to diffuse situations, and I was teaching eighth grade. So eighth grade, from all accounts, was that age group where kids are kind of going through puberty, they're going through adolescence, they're going through stress and hormonal changes and things of that nature. So I understood, like, okay, we could be dealing with quite a bit of volatility. Me being a young teacher, I kind of remember a lot of what happened in eighth grade, a lot of my eighth grade experience. I remember what it was like being their age, and so I was able to kind of say, okay, I remember seeing this before, and I'd be able to give kids kind of relatable stories, and because I looked younger, I knew I was gonna be able to kind of bond with those kids from that aspect, and so when it came time where they maybe have butted heads with a veteran teacher before, I was able to say, okay, this is what they're really trying to say, and that was a lot of the role that I had, at least in this staff for this year. I'm not going to know everything, so I would rely on teachers for that, and then in turn, I would help them out, in balancing out situations if they, occurred. But the main thing was, okay, you rely on your strengths, and then for the things you didn't know or you weren't the most well versed at, you kind of have to just figure it out, and you play it by ear. You keep on going and you learn. As you get observed, you ask, hey, what could I do better? What could I improve? What can I add? What is not necessary? You're always trying to be better every day that you go at something, and that's the same way you got to take life, right? You're not gonna be perfect, but being imperfect is honestly the beauty of life. You get to be better as you go on. So Then we get into what was the actual school year like. Um, Put simply, I mean, I think it was it was just an evolving cycle, right? It was one of those things where you had your every day was different. Um, every week was different. You dealt with different challenges, so you always were on your toes. I mean, I think that was the best way to put it. My kids, the kids at the school were not bad. Now they're eighth grade students. So however you see that is how it's gonna be. I kind of understood like, hey, these are eighth grade kids. They're gonna, go through things. They're gonna mess up. They're gonna have their times where they test boundaries and things of that nature. So I was never the type to get bent out of shape. That was not really my demeanor, right? But I just knew how to manage those type of kids from the standpoint for everything. Like if you would ask my kids, the main thing I would always tell them is there's a consequence for every action that you take. Consequences don't always have to be bad. Consequences can be a good thing, right? And so I would kind of let my actions speak for everything that they did, right? So if they did something good, I'd reward them for it usually. In terms of, hey, that just means that you got a good grade. Okay, if you needed to use your notes for an assignment, okay, cool. It's stuff like that. But then on the flip side, you don't do the right thing, well, then you're gonna get the negative consequence. And that's kind of what it was all about with me, was just I'm gonna match the energy that you give me, and the classroom is largely gonna function based on how you guys act, right? So then kids were starting to pick up very early, like, okay, we're not really gonna play with him. Like he's nice and we can get along with him, but it's also one of those things. Like my kids would say it, like we know what we're getting when it comes to being in your classroom. Coach Obi and things of that nature. So for me, I took pride in that. And then just managing, the ones who would try to test the boundaries, you just have to make sure you stay firm on it. Don't waver. And that's something I had to learn later. Like I was trying to get along with them first and then instill structure later. That's the one mistake. Any veteran teacher will tell you is that you got to set the standard first and set the structure first, and then you can bond later. And it makes sense because I remember having a teacher like that who she wouldn't smile up until December, and then she told me towards the later part of the year, she did that for a purpose because if she came nice first, kids would have tested her, and so it's the same thing that I even had to explain to them, kind of being able to see and being an adult now. But all in all, I mean, main takeaways is, if you have a structure, if you know what you're doing, you do your homework, ironically enough, and you know what the lesson is going to look like every day, then you're more prepared. You're going to teach with more confidence, and then your kids can see it. And then just being stern on your rules, your expectations. Every teacher is going to be different. Every teacher is going to have a different teaching style. So there's no one way to skin a cat, but it's just making sure that your style works for you, works for your classroom, and works for your kids, and then you adapt towards the needs and the obstacles that arise as they come. But that's just a little bit of that. Last point, and this is I think the most important thing with just the current climate. But I think this is important for any job. I was advised leave work at work, and I think that was the most important thing that really got me through the entire year. Right, was when I would leave the school, work was done for that day. So I think a lot of the reason why I hear about teacher burnout is because they take what happened during that day, they take it home with them, and they harbor that. But that's the same with any person who works in corporate America or works in any job where they take what happened at that day to work, or they take their work home with them. And then rather than working that 9 to 5 or that 10 to 12 or that whatever the case, they're working all day long because they're always in work mode. They don't know how to shut it off. And so my thing was, I was the type I could stay later, right? I wouldn't mind staying later if it meant when I left that was it for the day, right? And I would shut it down and I'd be able to rest, recuperate, recharge, and then I'd be able to come at it with the next, a new found life, a new recharged life, a new recharged battery. And I think that was just some of the main takeaways I took. But all in all, I mean, good experience. Definitely learned, definitely grew as I was able to go along. And I mean, being a teacher, I always tell myself it was something I chose to do. I chose to do it. I chose to be a teacher. I chose to give back. I chose to be a positive role model and an influential figure to the next generation. To with that, I have no regrets, and I will not regret anything. And so, because of that, it was always a good thing for me being able to see it play out and me being kind of in the thick of it and kind of everything unfolding. But that's where we're gonna leave it today. Again, just the beginning of the journey, and we'll catch you on the next one.